Greetings and welcome to Let's Talk About Books, baby, where we talk with your favorite LGBTQ plus authors. I'm Anita Kelly, and my guest today is Chad Michael Hardy. Hey, Chad.
Hey, how are you?
I am well. How are you doing?
Fantastic.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. So, Chad, where are you in the world? What location?
Currently, I am in Orlando, Florida, but I split my time here and San Diego.
Okay. I didn't know if you were on East Coast time right now or not. So
I am.
I'm glad to hear that. I'm on the East Coast too, so it makes.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah. Sometimes I talk to people who are like 6 hours away and they're tired, or it's so I'm always interested in where people are.
Oh, for sure. Well, I go back and forth so much that I don't even know what time zone I'm in, and I adjust rather quickly. But
Wow.
it wasn't at first. It was really hard to get up in the morning when I first started coming to Florida. Now it's just, I make sure I got my workout scheduled at like 7 or 8 a.m., so I'm forced to get up and face the day. If not, I'll stay in bed.
Oh boy, I would just keep hitting the snooze button. So, so, Chad, I want to talk about your book that's called Law of Zero. Can you tell us about that?
Yes. So Law of Zero, it's a blend of a memoir and self-help. And it is born of 40 years of trying to figure this world out and where I personally fit in it. And writing this book, I discovered some really great tools that have not only helped me, but have helped others that I have shared them with. And so they kind of championed me to write this book and get it completed. And it just came out in January of this year.
Wow, that's great. And what is the Law of Zero?
So the Law of Zero, this actual law, I like to liken it to the law of attraction, if you're familiar with that. It's that belief that if you think positive thoughts, positive things happen to you, and vice versa. And this was something that my grandfather taught me at a very young age before it became really mainstream. And so when things like The Secret came out, I already knew this philosophy because my grandfather lived it. And so I was very good as a young person manifesting things. I manifested a great career, a house, all these things at a very young age. And I thought, wow, I'm so magical. And once I had all these things, I realized that I still wasn't happy. Like there was still parts of me that felt like there was something wrong, and it would spoil all these good things that I created. And so through my self-discovery, I realized that the law of attraction is just the tip of the iceberg to manifesting, and the law of zero is the full iceberg. And it requires us to dig a little deeper than just writing some positive affirmations, doing a vision board. It actually requires us to take ownership of all the things in our lives, the good, the bad, all of it, and to release the parts of ourselves that are no longer in alignment with who our authentic, true selves are. And so this is something that the law of attraction doesn't go under the surface to the real nitty gritty parts of ourselves that many of us don't want to look at because it's painful. But if we're willing to face these things, kind of like Rumpelstiltskin, if we can name our traumas, we can get rid of them. And so that's kind of what I've written about, is this philosophy called the Law of Zero. And there are 5 entry points to achieving this space called zero. And I probably should explain what zero is.
Yeah.
So zero is both a place and a state. So it is a place of complete neutrality. And in this place is where all creation comes from. So if we want to get biblical, in Genesis, God said, "Let there be light." Well, what was there before there was light? There was just the thought or idea of light. And that space is what I call zero, because it's untethered to to nothing. It doesn't know right from wrong. It just simply is. And it's a power source because, inspiration has to come from somewhere. It has to come from some sort of energy source, whatever that is. And so I've put a name to it and I call it zero. And so that's the place of zero. And the state, if we can align ourselves with this place, we can also become completely untethered to all of the what I call lowercase truths that are not real truths, what are capital T truths or real truths, like the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. That's like a capital T truth. Lowercase truths are things like, well, I can't do that because I'm unworthy, or I can't achieve something because I'm gay. I mean, whatever it is that we tell ourselves that are limiting beliefs, I call these lowercase truths.
Okay.
So that's, and then I don't even know why I brought that up.
No,
Getting ahead of myself.
No. I think I asked you what exactly was the law of zero. And so it sounds like, if I understand it correctly, that you actually need the law of zero in order to move beyond that into the law of attraction. Like you need to be in a place of neutrality and kind of untethered in order to actually understand and realize what you're attracted to, what you want, and then you can kind of put that out there to the universe.
Yes, and it helps you with the awareness process to discover who you are. Like, what is your authentic true self? What are your capital T and lowercase truths? And there we go. Now I can come full circle. Now I remember why I'm bringing this up because it's important. I like to talk about these two kinds of truths, but oftentimes we live our lives with pretty much that old saying, like, you only know what you know. So when we come to this earth, we have parents, we have community, we have religions, we have all these things that kind of tell us that this is the way life is. Well, it's not necessarily so, because that might be the way life is based on that certain community, but that's not necessarily a real truth. And, the best description, not to get political because I don't like politics, but if you look at the political divide in the United States, it's very extreme. And I have to say that both sides are right and both sides are wrong. It just depends on where your morality meter falls. And this, you can argue, well, are those real truths or are there lowercase truths? Well, it just depends on your own personal truth. And I think where we're at right now in our world is that everybody wants to claim that they have the absolute truth. And only you know that, but just because it's true for you doesn't mean that it's true for somebody else. And that was the biggest kind of aha awareness moment that I had writing this book, is that I realized that all of our truths are different, because the only thing that's true for all of us goes back to that, well, we need food and water to live. Sun rises in the east, sets in the west. We need oxygen. Those are real truths. Everything outside of that is all something that we need to become internal and reflective, because if we want to create things in our lives, if we want to manifest things, sometimes we manifest things, or we have a hard time manifesting, or we manifest them and then they disappear like a mirage because our authentic truth is out of alignment with it. And a good example of this is that, I'm gay, raised Mormon, and I tried so hard to live this life that was carved out for me. You go to Brigham Young University, you go on a mission, you come home, you find a wife, you get married in the temple, you have kids, and you repeat the process. And I tried to do this so intently. I mean, that's where most of my traumas really stem from, is me trying to live this life that was never meant for me, because that was never my capital T truth. But it took this awareness for me to understand that and to have the courage to say, no, that life was not meant for me. Now, sure, there are many people with equal measures of cognitive dissonance that live in this kind of duality of who they are, who they think they should be, and what's their authentic self. And I mean, my heart goes out to them, and my book really is really written for that individual, somebody who just, they're not sure what their path is. But as we embrace this concept of the law of zero, we become whole. We become like everything that we are supposed to be, and then we will see the life, the path that we need to live by. And then we live that life, and we don't have to tell everybody else that, hey, this is the way life needs to be. It's because it's going to be different for everybody. And there's enough room in this big, huge universe for all of us to march in our own lane and be authentic, and to meet at connecting points with other humans to share this human experience with, and we can learn from each other, So that's kind of where I'm at personally with my, understanding of the law of zero, as I've discovered it.
Okay.
And
so it sounds like the community truths, right, do not necessarily mean that they're your individual truths. And so when you discover that, you're left with some choices to make, right? You can either stay in that community and live an unauthentic life, or you can leave and move on from that community and be and live your authentic truths out, I guess.
Correct. And it's a choice. And there's many who that the price is too high for them to live authentically.
Yeah.
But I know that when you truly live authentically, you become a wizard. Your life just kind of magically happens, and you have in so much better control of your emotions. Like, things don't get you out of alignment like they used to once you kind of live in the space of zero.
Yeah. So what was the impetus then for writing The Law of Zero? I think you touched on it a little briefly there, I think.
Yeah. So when I got excommunicated from the LDS Church, one thing that I took with me.
That sounds so harsh. Sorry.
It seems a little archaic, especially when you're talking about, I always say there's two places in this world that we should be absolutely safe to be ourselves, and that should be at home with your family and at church. And those were the two places that I needed to hide from.
Oh, that makes me sad.
Yeah, and luckily I feel like people growing up now, sure, that's still happening, but I feel like we as a society have become a little bit more open and loving, which is good.
Yeah.
So yeah, you see the community now, and it's like, wow, your parents were okay with you being gay? Wow. It's really awesome.
Yes.
But there was a time, for me, especially growing up. And so I left the church, but the one thing I kept kind of close to me was this concept of forgiveness, because I realized, the church taught a lot about forgiveness. I had a lot of great personal experiences with forgiveness, which I talk a lot about in my book. But I wanted to write a book about forgiveness. So I started writing it, and it wasn't long that I realized that I just wasn't ready to forgive. I was still running pretty hurt. And so I put the writings to bed, and 10 years goes by. And my dear friend Quinn, who is been a very good friend of mine for 20 plus years, and he lives in Los Angeles, and he called me up one day out of the complete blue. This was about this time, 2019.
Okay.
And he's like, Chad, you have to finish your book. I just feel really strongly about it. You have to finish it. And he and his friend Yayoi, that they're friends from college, they drove down 2 hours from LA to San Diego to sit at my table to tell me to finish this book. And I thought, okay, what's the catch here? Like, why do you feel so passionate about this? And so I opened up Google and I put in the name of my book that I had started to write.
Yeah.
And it showed up on Amazon. Somebody else in the 10 years time had written my book with the same title,
No.
the same concept, everything. And it reminded me of my grandfather, the one who's all about the law of attraction. He used to tell me, he said, if you have a really great idea, Chad, you better act on it, because if you don't, that information goes out to the universe and someone else is going to pick up on it and they're going to do it.
Yep.
And I've had many experiences like this in my life where I have a great idea and I don't do it and someone else does. So I'm like, well, my book has been written and I really still don't want to write about forgiveness. It's just not, I don't feel like that's what I want to write about. And I don't really think that people, especially now, are ready to forgive. There's a lot of chaos in our world.
Yes.
The last thing they're wanting to think about is forgiveness. What everybody's thinking about right now is like justice.
Yes.
And so they left, and I sat that night kind of meditating because I knew there was something greater than forgiveness out there that I needed to write about. And I tell you what, this voice that's spoken to me 2 other times in my life spoke to me again and said, it's called the law of zero. And I immediately got up. I'm like, what is that? It seemed as foreign to me as it probably did to you when you first heard about my book. And so I got out Mr. Google and I typed in law of zero, and there was nothing. Just some random like math stuff, but nothing that had anything to do with this. So I called Yayoi, she's Japanese, who attended that meeting. And I said, oh, well, the aliens spoke to me. I joked that it's the aliens because what else is the explanation here? And it's called the law of zero. She says, oh, that's like the Japanese Enzo. It's this handwritten circle that means like the nothingness, the void, like nirvana. And I'm going, oh, okay. So maybe there's something to do with this idea of nothingness. And so I started researching. And I started researching ancient religions and ancient civilizations, and all of them kind of had this belief in this idea of the nothingness. And nothing is everything. And so that kind of sent me down this path. And it was quite the rabbit hole, because then you start getting into some really interesting ideas, like, okay. And so I'm like, how do I like hone this to make it like digestible to the general public? And then that's when these 5 entry points started just coming to me again. I guess I go back to the aliens and I joke though, that it was just some sort of like inspiration that just told me what they were, in these 5 entry points.
Do you think that was your inner voice?
Yeah. But it's weird because who told me was an outer voice. It was a female voice. And this voice, and I talk about this voice in my book because it spoke to me first when I was about 8 years old, when I was really sad. And this voice was there to comfort me. And then the second time it spoke to me was when I chose to strip away from the beliefs of my church. And that voice told me that these no longer serve you and that you need to let go. And then the third time is when she said, it's called the law of zero. So 3 times now, this female voice has spoken to me and has given me either words of comfort or inspiration.
Yeah.
And
that's awesome.
I would love to know who she is. Maybe it's my guardian angel.
Yeah.
But regardless, she gave me this information, and now I'm sharing it with everyone else.
Yeah. When you talk about like starting, like it's almost like this law of zero is like a clean slate, right? And so you're starting at this place where your past is just your past, and you can make your future what you want it to be. And that's like I'm thinking of folks in recovery from alcohol and other drugs, right? They want a clean slate, and when they stop drinking and drugging, that they are left with this clean slate and a whole new world opens up to them. Um, I don't know. It's kind of my analogy, I guess.
Yeah, well, there's something that I talk about in my book called I call it the human story code. So these are like building blocks that make up our identities that are imprinted upon us since birth. And all of the stories and things that happen to us build this identity. And in speaking to like those who are in recovery, they have to, and especially someone who grew up like me in a religious institution that doesn't align with your authentic self, we have to break those building blocks down. And it's probably the most superhuman thing you will ever do in your life is to unravel this tightly knitted cloth that has been wrapped around you, suffocating you for your entire life.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of courage and a lot of willpower. And those who have gone through recovery know this, and it's ongoing. It's not like, okay, I'm good now. No, it's an ongoing, challenge to stay on your authentic path, and to build healthy habits and rebuild your code with healthier thoughts. Getting rid of these lowercase truths that no longer serve you.
Yeah.
So yes, getting to zero, it untethers you from everything. So your past and your future, you just be at this point. And once you are in this state of neutrality, you can now push that direction that you want to go with a lot more ease because you're no longer tethered to fear. And when we no longer have that fear holding us back, we can move at phenomenal speeds and in the direction that we want to go.
Yeah. Chad, I was reading that you had made a calendar, and I'm not sure if I'm correct in how I interpreted this, but was that what got you excommunicated from the church?
Yes.
Okay.
So it is true.
Yeah. Okay. So tell us about that. Tell us about that whole experience. And did you expect such a strong, reaction to that?
Yeah. So to kind of understand, the calendar, you have to understand why I did it.
Okay.
And I had just come out of just having a really harrowing experience in a little town in southern Utah called St. George, where I pretty much got small towned. I had started this business, did a weekly street fair. The city gave me permission to shut the main street down and bring out vendors and musicians. And it was like a street fair, like we've all seen in different places. And it was doing really well. And a lot of the fifth generation people that I called them that own businesses downtown were unhappy with the fact that this outside gay person was come to their town and putting on this event. And so they pretty much went to city council and in other words said, we don't need his kind in our town, and had pictures of my social media, pictures of me having, I don't know, a drink in my hand or something. And they ended up taking my business away from me, and then they started it themselves. So I was left with no income. And so
stinks.
And a lot of things kind of happened that drove me out of that. And I ended up in Las Vegas, started a new business. I was kind of just moving on with my life, but I still was like every time I think about that, I get so angry, and I wanted so badly for justice for what they did. And one day I just had this crazy idea, what if I created a calendar, that kind of goes against the whole image of Mormons, because that was the one thing. They all wore their religion on their sleeves when they would talk to me.
Okay.
And I thought, you know what? You are pretending to be a really great person by stating that you're a member of this church, but really your actions tell me that maybe that's not the case. So I thought, let me create a calendar that's going to disrupt that image. And so I gathered a whole bunch of returned Mormon missionaries, that image that we all know so well from the Book of Mormon musical with the
Yeah.
white shirt, black name tag.
That is the best, by the way.
Right. Honestly, when I saw that, I couldn't stop. I mean, I think my face hurt afterwards. I
Yes.
thought, how did they get that so perfect?
Yeah.
But anyway, I thought, well, let's create a beefcake calendar of these guys, and so we did, and it was a massive media storm. And the church really didn't say anything. They tried to get a comment out of them. They just said no comment. And we thought, okay, well, we didn't really do anything wrong. I mean, we weren't like doing pornography. It was like kind of like a beefcake, like a firefighter calendar type thing.
Yeah.
And it was funny, and we were raising money for some charities, and we wanted to just create some dialogue. But I didn't realize at the time that my real motivation was to get back at all of the people in the church that had hurt me throughout my entire life. And it wasn't just the people in St. George. It was, and I talk about a lot of it in my book. So we create this calendar, does really well. We're getting ready to do the second edition, and that's when the church came knocking at the door, and they got really aggressive with me and started making all kinds of really crazy accusations, and it started to actually kind of scare me because I thought they were trying to intimidate me.
Yeah.
So because I wouldn't budge on stopping to produce it, because I actually had a non-Mormon financer, and he was like, no, I'm going to keep doing it regardless if you're involved or not. So they end up having what they call it church court. And it was pretty obvious that the decision was already made from the higher ups. In fact, many different people have come and spoken to me at different parts of the last 15 years or so of my life and have told me more and more information. The people who used to be on the inside of the church now have left.
Yeah.
And they've told me kind of inside scoop of what was going on there. But essentially it came from the top that I needed to be made an example of. So they excommunicated me just like that, boom. And in the meantime, I was still finishing up my classwork at BYU, or actually I'd already finished it. I was just waiting for the graduation day.
Yeah.
I was wondering why they were rushing to excommunicate me, because it seemed like, okay, why do you need to get this done right this second? Can we just talk about it?
Yeah.
But no, so they excommunicated me, and then BYU followed suit about a month later and revoked my degree.
Oh, that stinks.
So you asked the question, was I expecting that type of reaction? No. I definitely thought they wouldn't be happy, but even my dad, who's pretty, he's very much, to the letter of the law, member of the church. At first, he thought it was kind of funny, and he thought, well, hey, if this gets people talking about the church, great. And then as soon as the church made an official statement about it, then of course he changed the way he felt about it as well. So I was not expecting that, and it was pretty brutal because mostly because it was all over the news, and I couldn't hide from it. And my poor family, they had to endure that because it was like the headlining story on Inside Edition that night.
Yeah.
It was in every single newspaper. My family that lives in Arizona, it was like the top, front page of the newspaper in Phoenix. And so I felt bad for my family because I felt like maybe I embarrassed them. And so I kind of just went into hiding after that. I mean, I did the calendar for a few more years just because, well, that's just, I even did a female version called Hot Mormon Muffins. And that one did really well. We only did it 1 year though, because after that I was just kind of like, all right, I'm kind of done.
Yeah.
So after the calendar, I put it away and just refocused my life on my team building business that I do now. And then, in 2019, just had this epiphany to write this book. And then in writing the book, that's when I started to unravel and realize why I had done the calendar. Because at that point, I didn't even really know. I just figured, it's doing something funny. But then I realized, well, the way I dealt with my traumas my whole life was through humor. And I think a lot of comedians do.
Yeah.
And I had to get really real with myself and authentic and really get to the truth of why I did that. And I now know it was all from wanting revenge.
Yeah.
And I realized that getting revenge, though it feels good in the moment, long term, it actually set me back in a massive way.
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. I am so sorry that you had to go through all that. Like that just for me it just really is the depiction of folks who claim to be Christians and then act against what one would think a Christian would act like, instead of embracing someone and, having a conversation. Let's shun them and, excommunicate them.
Yeah, but it's true. I mean, it's unfortunate that this is just the way these systems of control work.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah.
But it's also opened up my eyes more and to be more empathetic, because now when I come across somebody who is just seems like a really horrible person, like these people that came after me with this like metaphorical pitchforks in St. George.
Yeah.
The question isn't what's wrong with you. The question is what happened to you.
Yeah, true.
Because if anybody treats another person in such a way,
Yeah.
something happened
Yes, it
in
did.
their life that made them feel like that's how they need to behave. And if we could be a little more empathetic to others and again, stay in the state of zero, when people come at us like that, it's kind of like a bear in the woods. When bears come across, or any type of animal in the wild come across some sort of traumatic experience, they shake their trauma off and they move on with their life. It doesn't affect them. The only two creatures on this planet that are affected by trauma is humans and domestic animals. And so I think about that a lot, especially when I'm driving. The best way to practice getting to zero with people is when you're driving, because, people get aggressive.
Yes.
They cut you off. They scare you. You get mad.
Yeah.
I use that as a time to be like, okay, I'm not going to let this affect me emotionally. I'm going to let it go.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how it doesn't disrupt my day, where something like that, someone could cut me off. It could really like send me down a path of destruction that entire day.
Yeah.
So it's been a great tool for me to manage my emotions, if anything.
Yeah. And you when you're driving, sometimes you get in that Zen space where you realize, oh, how did I get from there to here? Like I was just like in this zone, and it's a good place,
Exactly.
Yeah. So when you wrote The Law of Zero, was this then more like a cathartic experience for you?
It really was, mostly because I finally could connect all of the dots.
Okay.
And realized how I got to where I am in my life right now. And I saw that I actually had done these steps to zero, not even realizing that I was doing it. And it also gave me some new awareness about the two people in my book that caused me a lot of pain, was my brother and my father. And I realized in writing my book that they showed me love in the way that they knew how to express it. And me, being a little on the selfish side, wanted a brother to love me a certain way, or a father to love me a certain way. And I realized that they did show up for me in my life. And I was just so caught up in my own chaos and my own trauma to recognize it.
Yeah.
And so this book helped me come full circle to realize that yeah, my brother and my dad is, as disjointed our relationships have been throughout our lives, they still love me and I love them. And it's maybe not what you see in the movies, but my dad showed up for me when BYU took away my degree. I couldn't believe it. And my brother, when I was excommunicated from the church, he also had his name removed from the church. He essentially excommunicated himself to stand in solidarity with me. And I didn't even put all of that together until I was writing this book. And I had to sit there and stop and wipe away the tears, because I couldn't believe that they had always been there for me. And here I am thinking that they weren't.
Yeah.
But it's just that I failed to see the level of love they're capable of giving. And so again, this book has really helped me become so much more empathetic to everything and everyone, and myself especially. I mean, I had to show myself grace on so many levels, and I think that comes across pretty clearly in the book, because I am so raw and authentic. I don't hold back at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I feel like I owe that to a lot of people. I owe that to my own family. I owed that to myself. I owed that to members of the church that I know I offended by doing the project that I did. And if we can all understand the motivation of why we do things, then it can help us be more empathetic. Even that person that cut you off, it's like maybe they're on their way to say goodbye to their mother for the last time. We don't know why people do the things that they do.
I always think that, because my first reaction is to oh, you son of a gun. And then I'm like, hey, maybe they're on their way. They just got an emergency call and who knows what's happening. I always try to talk myself through it, I think,
Sure.
a lot of people do that. Yeah, no, you don't know. And that's part of, really being non-judgmental, and being in that, place of zero, really.
Yeah. So do you want me to share with you the 5 entry points to zero, the things of what we have to do?
I do. I would love to hear about that.
So there's 5 things that we need to do to reach this neutral state and to find our authentic true self and to live, the life that's meant for us.
Okay.
And now I'm going to put these in order that kind of organically happen, but they can actually happen in any order. So you could be doing one and then another one ignites.
Okay.
But the first one for many of us is find awareness. So we need to know that something is not working, or that there's something missing, or there's something more that we need to discover. And that's awareness, because we can live our lives ignorantly, without any awareness, and not even realizing that we're out of alignment. Mm-hmm. So awareness is that key. Even if we were to put this into the realm of the law of attraction, you have to be aware of what it is you want to attract. What is that thing, or what is that experience that you want?
So
that's
is
number
it,
one.
Oh, sorry. Is it more of a self-awareness or an awareness of your situation that you're in?
All of the above.
Okay.
But self-awareness is going to unlock all of the other awareness. It's like getting to the core of the apple as quickly as possible. Mm-hmm. Is if you can unlock that self-awareness, because then you can start to realize, oh, well, some things are kind of not where I want, and then you can start thinking more broadly what you do want. Mm-hmm. And then the next one would be secure alignment. So you need to get in the lane of what it is that you want. If it be more knowledge, then you would get in the lane of furthering your education. If it be you want a relationship, then you would get in the lane of going and doing things where you'll meet other people. If it be a career move, then you need to start getting the lane of if you want to be a musician, you better start hanging out with other musicians. You got to get in that alignment with it.
Yeah.
And then the next one, and those first 2, by the way, that is the law of attraction. It is, being aware of what you want, and then, getting in alignment with it. Write it down, write your goal, do your vision board. The next one, now we're going under the surface, and this is take ownership. Now, taking ownership is taking ownership of everything in your life, the good, the bad, all of it. Mm-hmm. Even if you were abused in your life, which I was, you still have to own the fact that happened to you. and that is your story. And once you own it, then you can do something about it. And that leads to the next entry point, which is release to receive. So this is kind of that forgiveness part where you can't let go of something if you are still blaming another person or experience or situation. You have to just say, yeah, I did not want that to happen to me. It was unfair, but it's still my story and it's my life. And I'm going to choose to take that ugly parts of my story and I'm going to toss it. I'm not going to be tethered to it anymore. And so we release it. And in the release, there has to be a receive. So this is where we can release those lowercase truths, release those limiting beliefs so that we can receive what we have worked on in our awareness portal to, what it is that we want in our lives. And it will help us stay in alignment with what it is that we truly desire. Because a lot of times, and this is like I was talking earlier about, I was really good at manifesting things, but then I would kind of spoil them. Well, I would spoil them because I was unwilling to release this like facade of a human that I was. And it wasn't until I released that person that wasn't even me that I could receive the authentic me. And then all of those things that I wanted to manifest started sticking around. They weren't leaving. And a lot of times they were better than I could have imagined, which then leads us to the fifth point of entry, engage our power. Now we're back up above the surface, and that's another part of the law of attraction, engaging your power, which is just giving your authentic self the power to move forward in the direction that you desire. And it's doing the work. It's just putting one foot in front of the next until you finally get where it is you want to go. So just to kind of wrap that up, you have find awareness, secure alignment, take ownership, release to receive, and engage your power. If you do these 5 things, I promise that your life will completely change. And I often say you need to zero responsibly, because when we make that decision, when we have that awareness that we are not living authentically and we get in alignment with our authentic selves, you have to prepare for the fallout, because there are going to be people, places, things that are going to fall out of your life because they no longer serve your authentic true self and they're no longer in alignment with you. So if you are serious about living your highest, truest self, you have to also have the courage to go through the trenches of the fallout and know that when that happens, you have to stay calm. You have to, I call these things cyclones. They're going to come at you like storms, try to knock you back into your old alignment. And you have to seek shelter and stay true to course. And then eventually, all of the things are going to start rebuilding, that human story code starting to rebuild in the direction that you desire. And I have seen friends of mine do this and completely transform not only their life, but the way they look. I mean, everyone that has done zero, they look so much better. They're just happier. They're more authentic. And they're not weighed down by the stress and anxiety of this world anymore. Because why? Like, why do we allow ourselves to be tethered to things that really we have no control over?
Yeah. I just want to jump back to, you were talking about take ownership, and you mentioned, that you were the victim of abuse. So you're not suggesting that someone who is the victim of abuse is responsible for that, as a child, as an adult, and you're abused, you're still not responsible for what other people do, but you can be responsible for yourself. You take ownership of where you're going with that. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, because nobody ever asks to be abused or to be treated unfairly or to have horrible things happen to them. Look at the people in Los Angeles lost all their homes to these fires. No one asked for that and no one deserved that. But we can take ownership to say, well, that happened to me. That's my story. It's kind of like if I were to come to your house and just come with a huge truckload of trash and just dump it all over your lawn and leave a little note like, you're welcome, enjoy. You'd be like, what the crap, Chad? Why did you just do that? Come clean this up. And I'm going to say, no, I gave it to you. And so then you're going to start calling everybody, all your friends, tell them, oh, can you believe what Chad did to me? What a horrible thing. Can you believe it? And then you're going to call the police and I'm going to be like, well, there's nothing we can do now. And everyone you talk to at the grocery store, getting your hair done, getting your nails done, whatever, you're telling everybody about this trash that this guy left on your lawn. And I become the leading character in your life.
Right.
And
becomes all consuming.
Right. And then one day you have a realization, Chad is not coming back to ever clean up this trash. It's now mine to deal with. So it's a choice. You can live with the trash on your lawn forever, and hopefully the wind will blow some of it away. Or you go out there, get some gloves and get some trash bags and clean it up till your yard's beautiful again. So that's taking ownership. And yeah, I think it is important to say, no, it doesn't mean that you did anything to deserve it, or that the person that say it was abuse, that say you were sexually abused, well, that person still needs to be accountable and responsible for what they did, but it's still your story. And you can live your whole life being a victim, or you can take what happened to you and you can empower yourself.
That's it.
And you can release it so that you can receive the life that you want outside of that abuse.
Yeah.
And it no longer has power over you.
Yeah. It's all about taking your power back as a person. Yeah. That's great. That's really great. And the 5 points of entry, you can, I think you said you think they're kind of fluid.
Yes.
They're not linear in any way.
Yeah, because you could be engaging your power, living your life going, everything's great and wonderful. And then all of a sudden you hit a roadblock and you're like, whoa. So you got to spend some time in awareness, or maybe you're like really working on forgiveness and taking in while you're spending time and working through the forgiveness process, you realize that you've not taken ownership of something in your life. So this kind of can happen in any way. It's kind of like whack-a-mole, because you want to get them all greenlit. Because once they are, then that's when the magic happens. And then if the magic isn't happening, it's because one of those entry points is not greenlit. And you need to go back and spend some time there.
Okay.
And your natural knowing, we all have a voice somewhere in our head. I mean, I had one that's female, but we all have something innate within us that gives us information and inspiration. All of us have this. So if you allow that inner voice to speak to you, it will tell you what it needs.
Yes, you're so right. We just have to get quiet, and listen to that, which is hard to do these days. So Chad, can you tell us, are you still involved with, is it Adventure Games?
Yes.
Is that
so
your
that's,
company? Yeah. What's that about?
That's the company that funds everything in my life. So
Yay.
The book is a passion project. Adventure Games pays the bills. So yes, I've been doing adventure games since 2005. So it's corporate team building. I work with corporations large and small, and we do activities that help bring people together to help them build, common bonds, build bridges, and have some fun while doing it. Because life is supposed to be fun, right? We're supposed to be happy. That's that is our ultimate, that's where we all want to be, right? So that's what we do. And companies just ask us to come out. It's usually a half day, anywhere from 1 to 3-4 hours, experience.
Nice.
And we have a dozen different games to choose from, anything from, in room to running around town like scavenger hunts to even virtual. Like during COVID, we were 100% virtual and stayed very, very busy. So I was very fortunate.
Oh, that's great. That's nice. Yeah. All right. Awesome. So we want to just give a little shout out for your company, Adventure Games. So if anyone is, thinking about some team building for your organization, give Chad a call. So
Yes, and and if you really want to meet me, like I don't really facilitate them anymore, but we do have those clients that request say, well, we'll only sign the contract if Chad runs it. So if you can play that game, and then I'll come and I will facilitate your activity for you.
nice, nice. Yeah. So you heard that here first, folks. So where can our listeners obtain a copy of The Law of Zero?
So they can get it anywhere books are sold. So if there's a local bookstore that you like to support, then they can actually order it for you. If you're, lazy like me and don't like to leave your house, Amazon has it.
Okay.
Barnes and Noble online has it as well. Some stores carry it, but it's kind of hit or miss right now because it's still so new.
Okay.
But yeah, definitely online. I even saw it on Target.com and Walmart.
Awesome.
So it is available pretty much anywhere where books are sold online. And then, but I always say try to support your local bookstores if you can. Just walk in and they're able to order it because it's in the system.
Great. Awesome. So, Chad Michael, that's about all the time we have for today, but I'm wondering if you have any parting words for our listeners.
My parting words are this. Inside of each of you, there is a power so great that if you could untap it, it would not only change your life, but everyone else's life around you. And you will no longer pay your traumas forward anymore. And I just challenge everybody to have the courage to look within and listen to that voice and get to zero.
Those are very true words. Yes, I totally believe that. And it has been so great to talk to you. I look forward. I haven't read The Law of Zero, so I am going to order that tonight and check it out. So thanks again to Chad Michael Hardy for being with us today. And listeners, please check out his new release called The Law of Zero. I think that you'll all like it. It's really enlightening and really, really good stuff for the soul. And I think we all need that right now. So that's all the time we have for today. And I'm Anita Kelly, and thanks for joining Let's Talk About Books, baby. So until next time, may your journey be lighthearted, peace be plenty, and be safe, folks.